If you're 60 and thinking about retiring in Thailand, you might actually be in the best possible age window to do this. Not 50, not 70, 60. But there's a catch. Because between age 60 and 67, there are three financial traps that can quietly destroy your retirement plan. And most people don't even realize they exist until it's too late. The first is what I call the 7-year pension bridge. The second is the age 65 insurance cliff, and this one catches a lot of people. And the third is Thailand's new tax reality in 2026. Now, if that sounds negative, stay with me, because this video is not about telling you not to retire in Thailand. In many ways, I actually think 60 may be the sweet spot. You're young enough to enjoy it properly, old enough to know what matters, and close enough to retirement reality that you stop thinking emotionally and start thinking strategically. And that's the big difference, really. At 50, retirement in Thailand feels exciting. At 60, you're thinking much more about strategy. By 70, you're thinking a lot more about health, hospitals, and support. And that shifts the whole conversation. Because at 50, many people are trying to escape something. Stress, work, another winter, burnout. By 70, the questions become very different. How close is the hospital? Can I still get decent insurance? What happens if my health suddenly changes? But at 60, you're right in the middle, and that's what makes it such an interesting age. If you get this decision right, Thailand could give you one of the best chapters of your life. But if you get it wrong, the same move can become an expensive mistake that's very hard to reverse. At 60, something changes. You've got clarity you didn't have at 50. At 50, a lot of people are still running. From burnout, from work, from winters they don't want anymore. And when you move from that headspace, especially to Thailand, it's usually emotional. And emotional decisions tend to be the expensive ones. At 60, it shifts. You're not running anymore. You're positioning your life. Most people have done the heavy lifting by this stage. Mortgage smaller or gone, kids grown up, and work finally starting to wind down. And that changes how you think. I see it in the comments all the time. People who wait until 70 to make the move, then realise they don't have the same energy to enjoy it. Not financially, physically. At 60, you're still in a rare window, still enough energy to build something new, but enough experience to know hope isn't a plan. You know your habits, you know your limits, you know what actually works for you. But here's the key point. It only works if you stop thinking like a tourist and start thinking long term. Because between now and your pension, there are real financial and health gaps most people don't properly plan for. Let's start with this first one. Now let's talk about the first major trap. And this one catches far more people than you'd expect. I call it the 7-year pension bridge. If you remember nothing else from this video, remember this. Because this is where a lot of retirement plans quietly break. Here's the issue. Many people want to retire in Thailand at 60, but for UK retirees, the state pension often doesn't start until 67. That's the 7-year gap. And in real terms, that's 84 months you have to fund yourself before any guaranteed income arrives. Now, most people hear that and think, I've got savings, I'll be fine. Maybe, but very few people actually run the numbers properly. Let's keep it simple. Say you need around £1,500 a month to live comfortably in Thailand. Not luxury, just normal life. Rent, food, healthcare, some travel and a buffer. £1,500 a month for 84 months is around £126,000. That's the gap you're really funding. And that's before inflation, medical costs, emergency travel, or currency swings. This is where people get caught out. They don't feel the money leaving at first, Year 1 feels fine, year 2 still feels comfortable, but somewhere around year 3 or 4, reality starts to creep in. Withdrawals get a bit heavier, costs rise, the exchange rate shifts, the margin starts shrinking. And once you build a life here, walking away isn't just financial anymore. It feels like failure. That's the part people don't factor in. And if this 7-year gap is the first trap, the second one is even more subtle. Because Thailand in 2026 isn't the Thailand most people think they're moving into. Now, if the 7-year pension bridge is the first major issue, this next one is newer, and in some ways more dangerous, because the Thailand many retirees plan around in 2023 is not quite the Thailand of 2026. And yes, I'm talking about tax. Now, before we go any further, quick disclaimer. I'm not a tax advisor. Nothing in this video is tax advice. But ignoring this topic in 2026 would be a serious mistake. For years, many retirees used a very simple system. Money sat in the UK, and when needed, they transferred funds into Thailand. Pension income, investment income, rental income, savings, simple, clean and predictable. But things have changed. Thailand has moved towards greater scrutiny of foreign sourced income brought into the country. And that matters if you're planning to live here full time. Why? Because once you spend 180 days or more in Thailand during a calendar year, you may become a Thai tax resident. And most full-time retirees cross that threshold easily. Now here's where I want to be careful. Tax is not one size fits all. Your outcome depends on things like where the income comes from, tax treaties, pension structure, residency status, how and when money is remitted. That's why generic YouTube tax advice is dangerous. And I'll say something blunt here. If your retirement plan involves moving hundreds of thousands of pounds internationally and your tax strategy is based on Facebook comments or random YouTube replies, you're taking unnecessary risk. Get professional advice, proper advice, not general accountant advice, not my mate Dave in Pattaya says this. I mean a real cross-border tax specialist who understands both the UK if you're living there and Thailand. Because here's the truth. Even if Thailand remains dramatically cheaper than the UK, poor tax planning can quietly erode your financial advantage. The good news is most tax problems are easier to prevent than fix. That's why planning before you move matters so much. Not after, before. This is the section I care most about, and if you skip everything else in this video, please don't skip this, because I've seen this problem derail retirement plans more than almost anything else. I call it the age 65 insurance cliff. And if you're around 60 right now, you need to understand exactly how this works. Here's the mistake many people make. They think health insurance gets gradually more expensive with age. Nice smooth curve. A little more at 61, a little more at 62, a little more at 63. That's not really how it feels. In reality, it often feels more like steps. And one of the biggest steps happens around 65. Premiums can jump sharply, sometimes very sharply. But here's the part that matters even more. The real danger isn't just higher premiums, it's losing options. At 60, if you're reasonably healthy, you usually still have choices. Good choices. Comprehensive policies, lifetime renewal policies, broad coverage, manageable underwriting. But fast forward 5 years. What can happen in 5 years? Well, actually quite a lot. Or maybe nothing. But maybe high blood pressure, diabetes, a cardiac event, cancer, a stroke scare, a surgery, something shows up on a scan. And the moment your health profile changes, the insurance conversation changes, sometimes dramatically. This is what many people underestimate. They think, I'll sort insurance later. No, later can be expensive. Later can be painful. Later can be too late sometimes. And this is the most important line in the entire section. The biggest mistake isn't paying too much for insurance. It's waiting until your body gives insurers a reason to say no. That's the cliff. Not just cost, access. Because by 65, some people discover something brutal. They're either facing huge premiums, dealing with exclusions, or becoming effectively uninsurable at realistic prices. And in Thailand, that matters enormously, because serious private healthcare isn't cheap. Yes, Thailand is cheaper than the UK and US for many procedures, much cheaper in some cases, but cheaper doesn't mean cheap. This is where self-insurance gets mentioned. And yes, some retirees do it. They keep a large emergency medical fund, maybe 2 million baht, maybe 3 million baht, maybe more. And for some wealthy retirees, that can work. But I want to be very honest here. The medical events that financially destroy people usually aren't the predictable ones. It's not the surgery you expected. It's the long tail event. Cancer treatment over 2 years. Complications after cardiac surgery. Specialist care, rehabilitation, ongoing medication. That's where costs can become enormous. So my view is simple. If you're planning to retire in Thailand at 60, secure proper health insurance while your body still gives you leverage, not after. Because at 60, you still have negotiating power. At 65, the market starts negotiating with you. Now, I want to give you one of the most important rules I've developed after years of living in Thailand and speaking to retirees. I call it the Newman 20-minute rule. And if you remember nothing else from this section, remember this. You should live within 20 minutes of a quality hospital or specialist clinic. Not 20 minutes in perfect traffic. 20 minutes in real life. That's the rule. Simple, but incredibly important. Now, some people hear that and think, George, that's a bit overly cautious. No, because at 60, you still feel healthy, strong, capable, and that creates a dangerous illusion. You start choosing locations based on lifestyle, beach, views, quiet, cheap rent, beautiful sunsets, and I understand the attraction. Thailand has extraordinary places, but retirement planning changes when you stop thinking like a tourist. Let me put it another way. Imagine it's 2 a.m., you wake up with crushing chest pain, or your speech suddenly feels strange, or you've taken a bad fall in the bathroom. At that moment, your ocean view means nothing. Your mountain villa means nothing. Your quiet island paradise means nothing. The only question that matters is how fast can I reach serious medical care? That's why I'm so firm on this rule, because I've seen people get seduced by remote paradise, and it works beautifully until life happens. At 60, being 1 hour from a hospital may feel acceptable. At 70, it becomes dangerous. That's the reality. Now let's look at some examples. Hua Hin passes this rule. Good hospitals, strong expat infrastructure, practical healthcare access. Pattaya also passes. Good private healthcare, plenty of medical access. But this is where people need to think carefully. Remote islands, some deep rural locations, beautiful, yes, wonderful for holidays, possibly wonderful for a few years, but as a long-term retirement base, you need to think beyond beauty. Because here's something I've observed repeatedly. Many retirees choose a location based on the person they are at 60, without thinking about the person they'll be at 72. That's the mistake. You're not just choosing for today, you're choosing for the future you. And the future you may care a lot less about sunsets and a lot more about cardiologists. Now, I want to talk about something most retirement channels never discuss, and honestly, I think they should, because I've seen this quietly ruin retirements. Not money, not visas, not healthcare, boredom. And what boredom can turn into. Because here's the thing, a lot of people think retirement means freedom, and of course it does. But retirement also removes something many people don't fully appreciate until it's gone: structure. And structure matters far more than most people realise. Work gives structure, even work you hated. It gave you rhythm, routines, deadlines, people who expected you to show up, reasons to get out of bed. Then one day, that disappears completely. And here's the line I want you to remember. Retirement doesn't just remove work, it removes structure. That's where things can get dangerous, especially in Thailand, because Thailand can feel amazing at first. The weather is better, the food is great, the cost of living feels lower. You wake up and think, why didn't I do this years ago? And for the first few months, it can feel like a permanent holiday. That's the honeymoon phase. Then something changes, usually somewhere between 6 and 12 months. The novelty fades, the routine becomes normal, and a difficult question appears. What exactly am I doing with my life now? That question catches people off guard, because some retirees didn't retire towards something. They only retired away from something. Away from stress, away from work, away from bad weather. But away from isn't enough. You still need a reason to move towards something. And this is where I need to be honest. Some expats here struggle badly. They become isolated, days blur together, sleep patterns drift, drinking increases, and because alcohol is cheap and socially available, the slide can happen quickly. Not dramatically, gradually. A beer at lunch, a few drinks at sunset, repeat, until the routine starts owning you. I'm not saying this happens to most retirees, it doesn't, but it happens enough that ignoring it would be irresponsible. So what works? The people who thrive in Thailand long term usually arrive with some purpose. Not a rigid schedules, just some purpose. Something that gives the day shape. Maybe that's learning Thai, golf, swimming, walking groups, volunteering, content creation, teaching, fitness, community projects, something. The happiest retirees I know didn't come to Thailand to do nothing. They came to do something different. And that difference matters, because retirement isn't really about stopping. It's about redesigning. The people who understand that usually do very well here. So, is 60 too late to retire in Thailand? No. In fact, I'd argue something quite different. For many people, 60 may actually be the best age to do it. Not because it's easy, and not because Thailand magically solves life. It doesn't. Thailand doesn't fit poor planning. It doesn't fix loneliness. It doesn't fix bad financial habits. And it definitely doesn't fix denial. What Thailand can do is reward preparation. That's the real opportunity. At 60, you still have something incredibly valuable: time. Enough time to enjoy this life properly. Enough health to build a new chapter. Enough energy to adapt. Enough clarity to make smarter decisions than you probably would have made at 50. That matters, because at 60, retirement stops being fantasy. It becomes design, intentional design. And that's really what this entire video has been about. Not whether Thailand is good or bad, not whether Hua Hin is better than Pattaya, not whether one visa is better than the other. The real question is much deeper. Can you build a retirement that is financially sustainable, medically safe, emotionally healthy, and meaningful? That's the real test. And if you can honestly answer yes, then Thailand can be extraordinary. Not perfect, but extraordinary. A slower life, a calmer life, a warmer life, maybe even a better life. But only if you build it properly. So if you're 60 and watching this, here's what I'd tell you. Do the maths on your 7-year bridge. Sort your insurance before your body changes the conversation. Get proper tax advice before moving serious money. Choose your location with future you in mind. And most importantly, don't just retire away from something. Retire towards something. Towards purpose, towards structure, towards a life that still feels alive. Because in the end, retirement in Thailand at 60 isn't about escape. It's about design. It's about choosing your next chapter deliberately. And if you do that well, 60 isn't too late. It might be exactly the right time. If this video has helped you out today, you'll find a Buy Me a Coffee link below if you want to support the channel. It's really appreciated. I also added a one-to-one consultation option in the extras section for people who want extra help planning their own situation more personally. Thanks for listening today, guys, and I'll see you in the comments.